Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Follow the Money and Joanne Jobin of IR Inc., as well as, of course, Laurentian Securities for putting on this conference and inviting Galway Metals and myself to present, and to Jacques Wortman for putting us as his top pick for 2021. You can see on the screen here, we have two assets in good old Canada, great mining jurisdiction in the provinces, New Brunswick, where we have the Clarence Stream Gold Project, and Quebec, the northern Abitibi of Western Quebec, where we have our Estrades VMS polymetallic project. Just two really good places to work. Political risks very low, terrific infrastructure, and I'll be showing that to you. You can see we have cash. Actually, the cash position right now, if you were to mark it to now, would be about $15 million. Market cap is right around 200 million. These are our shares outstanding, no change there. We strongly believe in what we're doing. So between the insiders and our family, we have over 20% of the company, and we have really strong institutional support with over 50%. This is only a dozen of the institutions that we have. We probably have in the neighborhood of 35 plus institutions in us today. And I feel really good about that. We feel really good about that because, these guys look at, investing in mining companies every day of the week, and they've chosen to put their capital with us. As a junior explorer, we have pretty good analyst coverage, including Jacques at Laurentian. Kudos to those guys for recognizing the value that we're creating. Mike Sutton is our head of exploration. He and I took a trip down to Colombia, South America in 2009 when Rob Hinchcliffe, our president, CEO, and founder, said that he was putting a package of properties together and would we take a look. He was starting a gold division at the time. Mike and I went down there, we took a look, and it took us about a nanosecond to say, where do we sign up? Because quite frankly, it was obvious that we were going to be able to create significant shareholder value. At the time, the market cap of Galway Resources, our predecessor company, was at $5 million. And we had cash of only $1 million in the till. 3.5 years later, we sold that company for $340. We dividended it out, $310 to shareholders, and the rest went to Galway Gold and Galway Metals. And here we're going to be speaking about Galway Metals today. That gave us a nice start. We have a strong technical advisory team. Debbie Laney is a metallurgical engineer. Duncan Middlemas is a mining engineer. You may know him as CEO of Westdome. You may know Phil Walford as the former CEO of Marathon Gold. They have the Valentine project in Newfoundland. We see a lot of similarities between our Clarence Stream project and Valentine. Dave Reese and Harold Gibson are world-renowned experts in their respective field. Dave is a structural geologist, and Harold is a VMS expert helping us out there. We have resources at both projects. The Clarence Stream resource is actually 3.5 years old. It has only 2 of the 6 known zones, the South Zone and the North Zone. And the reason why it's so dated is we keep finding more deposits. We found the George Murphy Zone, the Richard Zone, and the Adrian Zone since that resource is out. There was also a few holes in a deposit called Jubilee that we did know about at the time of our acquisition. Both of these projects, Clarence Stream and Estrades, were acquired in August of 2016. Just by happenstance. So the Clarence Stream project, with the caveat being it's 3.5 years old, and we're going to be putting out a resource update this summer, is just under 700,000 ounces at 2.2 grams. 500,000 of those fall within pit shells, again, in just the South and North zones, which we haven't drilled in 3.5 years. The Estrades project, as I say, it's a VMS. It has a suite of 5 metals: gold, silver, zinc, copper, and lead. The dominant metals there are gold and zinc. It's unusual for a VMS to have as high-grade gold and silver as it does, but the dominants are gold and zinc. So if you looked at it as a gold project, former producing mine, it would have over 1 million ounces gold equivalent at 9 grams. And as a zinc project, it would have 1.3 billion pounds equivalent at 16.5%. So any way you slice and dice it, it's a nice high grade underground opportunity in a great jurisdiction. So here's our infrastructure map. It shows a huge land position stretching 65 kilometers. We have 60,000 hectares. We're not land barons. The reason we picked this up and as much land as we did is we see prospectivity all along the trend. And we believe that we're going to continue to make new discoveries as we proceed. And I'll show you why and what I'm talking about as we go forward through this. But this is our infrastructure map. The pink lines that you see, those are the power lines crisscrossing our property. You can see roads crisscrossing our property. The area is rural. The main business here is forestry. So if you can't get where you want via a provincial or a regional road, you certainly can via a logging road. It's rural, but you don't have to build a mining camp because there are towns to the south. You can very civilized, live in town and drive roughly 20 kilometers to work. You've got a deep sea port at St. John. You've got an airport there and at the capital at Fredericton as well. You've got rail encircling the property. So you have just about all the infrastructure you could ask for, including a mill. We don't own this mill, but it's adjacent to our property, and we rent space in these buildings for our core splitting and logging, and our core farm is out back. And we're actually in discussions with the owners to see if there's a win-win deal that can occur. Now, it was a Billiton-built mill. It's been closed since the 1980s, so it's been on care and maintenance for a very long time. There's a lot of refurbishment that would have to go into the guts of it. But really, what we're looking at here is a fully permitted tailings facility. Sure, the permit would need to be updated, but as a brownfields situation and with a lot of capacity sitting here, it's a nice to have a fully permitted tailings facility. And in fact, this was a mine for tungsten, and it was in operation for less than 2 years. So you can imagine that this Billiton didn't build this mine for a 2-year operation. So there would be a tremendous amount of capacity. You look in the distance here, it's rural, it's bush country. So there's no towns to move. It's a really nice situation to be in, and New Brunswick is a great place to work. If you want a permit for drilling, it takes at most 3 weeks. We look at other jurisdictions where it takes months and months at times. Anyway, this is our map on the left, and on the right is Marathon's Valentine Lake. And the similarities that you'll see right off the bat is they're both intrusion related. So Marathon has in pink and us in pink as well, the intrusion. You can see the fault system going up and down the trends on both slides. And for Marathon, they have deposits and showings stretching over 20 kilometers of their land position. They have over 4 million ounces there. We have a 65-kilometer land position with showings up and down the trend. That's why we took as much ground as we did. We have the major fault. In fact, we think that this may be the same fault as what Marathon is on. You can see where the south and the north zones are, and those are associated principally with this major intrusion, the granite to the south. And you can see these are the areas where the stars are in a line that we've been drilling over the last 3 years because we keep making new discoveries and having success here. So all of our drilling is over only about 10% of the 65-kilometer land position, and we have showings all throughout. Now, another important, and by the way, this fault is the conduit for the fluid flow. Another important component are these small little pink intrusions that are sticking up throughout the trend. All of them, each and every one, are associated with gold showings. We probably have less than 1% of the showings on this map that we actually have, and that'll become evident in a few minutes. But this one isn't so small. Just to give you a scale, this is more than 10 kilometers, this intrusion. It's just, a big land package. I want to point out for reference later, this is a gabbro complex, also an intrusion. This is a granite. The south zone and an area up in here, this whole trend, have gabbro dikes. The south zone has gabbro dikes in contact with sediments, both of which are mineralized. This area we have not drilled, but it's a target we're looking to drill this year. Exactly the same geology, and the only place where the complex could have come from or the gold could have come from, those dikes could be from this gabbro complex. And I'll point out where that is on a later slide. So when we got here 4 years ago, people said to us, why would you acquire something on the East Coast? Everybody knows you can't find big multi-million ounce deposits on the East Coast. And Mike Sutton, to his everlasting credit, he thought that was hogwash. Geologically, there was absolutely no reason why you couldn't find major multi-million ounce deposits. And now, as you can see, here we are, and you follow the trend, and you come right up to where Marathon is. That's why we think we're either on the same fault or quite a similar structure as they're on. They have over 4 million ounces. Their market cap today is about $600 million. Here, multi-million ounces, First Mining's Hope Brook project between production and current resource. St. Barbara took out Atlantic for their Moose River mine year plus ago for $800 million. And down in the Carolinas, on this insert map, it just follows a trend down to the south. On your right is north, and on your left on the map is south. You had Oceana Gold taking out Remarco for their Haley mine, and that was also in excess of $800 million. So there's a lot of value to be created here. And if you look in the middle of all this, this is where our project is. If you want gold in New Brunswick, we're pretty much the only game in town. So this is our geochemistry map. We have a full map devoted to geochemistry because all of the deposits, all 6 of them, and all of the new discoveries were all made using geochemistry. The blobs that you see here, the 33 and the 22 in the middle of your screen, these are the glacial tills. And the tills were done by the government of New Brunswick back in the 1990s. So this is a relatively new camp because gold was not known to exist here. We think that they were looking for base metals because New Brunswick is known for its VMS deposits up in the Bathurst camp to the north. But instead, they didn't find base metals. Instead, it lit up for gold. And these are the tills. And what we and our predecessor company, Free West, did is we put soil grids on top of the land that we have to see, where where we can identify more gold showings. And, there are certain areas that, lit up very nicely, many of which we have not yet drilled because there's only so much we could do. Remember, this is a huge land package. This, what I'm showing you here, is only about a third of the overall. So it's a close-up where the South Zone, North Zone, and the rest of the deposits are. So a little bit of background and history of what we did when we came here. When you acquire property, you go from known to unknown. So we drilled to expand the South Zone, the North Zone, and at the time, just a few holes at Jubilee. And of course, we expanded all 3. We probably tripled the size of the Jubilee. And then after a year of drilling, we decided, let's go find something new. And we always knew from the day of acquisition that we wanted to drill the area that's now known as the George Murphy Zone. George Murphy is a prospector that's been working these claims, works for us now, but he's been here for 20 years. He found the boulders that were in the middle of a soil anomaly. What happened was Free West did a soil survey. They came up with a 700-meter-long anomaly with gold in the soils. And then George went in and he found the boulders ranging up to 16.5 grams. With our second hole, we found the zone. And we stayed here for an entire year. In the middle of it, we hit 800 grams. 40 meters away from that, we hit 200 grams. At the time, it was a really weak market. The market didn't care, but we stuck to our knitting, and we drilled here for a year. And at the time, we extended the zone 500 meters. We had 3 main veins. Now it's 3/4 of a kilometer with 6 veins. So it's grown substantially since. But what we did is we were moving the rig from the George Murphy 2 kilometers to the southwest to continue to expand Jubilee. And we decided to stop halfway between. And we stopped at a small, tiny little soil anomaly. Didn't even have a strike length to it. It was just a dot on the map. And we drilled it, and we hit just 30 meters down. We hit 7.3 grams over 36 meters. A really strong showing. And I'll show you a close-up of what that's blossomed into. It's quite nice. More recently, we found the Adrian zone. The first hole, what we did is we were doing some wildcats on some new veins to the north of George Murphy. We moved up to the Adrian zone as a wildcat, drilling another small soil anomaly in a different mag low. All of these deposits are also associated with magnetic lows. And the first hole that we drilled there hit 13.4 grams over 12.95 meters. I like to simply say 13 over 13 makes it a lot easier. Since then, we followed that up with a number of holes, and I'll show you a picture of that. We think that that's going to be a different zone and a different structure to the George Murphy. It may link up on one limb, but we think it goes to the north. And remember these 33 and 22. I'll show you where they are on a different map. This squiggly red line is a over 4 kilometer mag low with very strong soils in the middle of it. We haven't drilled it. Between that mag low and the Jubilee, we did drill, and we found 186 grammer over 0.6 meters on a wildcat hole, a kilometer from Jubilee, and just before you get to this trend. And I'll show you a magnetics of the trend. It's really interesting. We have not yet followed up on the results that we have out of this area, so we're looking forward to doing it. A huge target for us is down at Oak Bay and Tower Hill, where I'm showing you on my cursor, and I'll show you a close-up of that later. But it's the evidence for gold mineralization down in this area between Oak Bay and Tower Hill is actually a lot stronger than the evidence for gold mineralization before any drilling would have occurred in the area where we've spent the last over 3 years drilling. The claims in red you see are claims that we just acquired. That's why they're in red, or recently acquired. The other one that's strategic is Wilson Hill, because it follows the north zone to the northwest. This is the only one of our zones right now that we know is going in a northwest direction. All of the others are going in a northeast. So there's conjugate vein sets, northwest and northeast on our property. And you can see that kind of coming out in the soils in certain areas. In fact, this 186 grammer comes where one of these conjugate vein sets goes in the northwest and northeast area. And it's just off of this 95 till. That 95 till is the second highest till anywhere on our property. The highest is 211. The Gabbro complex that I pointed out earlier has an 86. That's the third highest. We put soil grids on top of the granite to the right where the 211 is, and it lights up. And this Gabbro complex, and it lights up. Haven't been drilled, but this is the Gabbro complex that provided the dikes for the south zone and this area over at Oak Bay and Tower Hill. All this intervening ground, which is showing up strong in soils, and we did another soil grid between what you see here. I haven't seen the results of them yet, but it's where some boulders of 16 grams and 7 grams are sitting in the 95 till. So it'll be quite interesting to see how this shapes up. Lots to do, tons of targets to drill and explore. This is the south zone. It's a long section. It stretches 2 kilometers. It's an area that we haven't drilled in over 3 years because we keep having, success where we are drilling. But all the zones, not just the south zone, but every zone that we have is wide open in every direction for expansion. If you were going to have a starter pit, though, this is where you would do it. This is surface right here, and the starter pit would be right where the magenta color is, because if you look at these grades, you got 10 grams over 31 meters, 5 over 42, 14 over 21, nice wide high grade intersects right at surface. So if you're going to enhance your NPV and you're going to shorten your payback period, this is certainly where you're going to do it. It's the largest component of our resource today, but we'll see. It may be dwarfed by what we've been doing over the last several years. This is the north zone. All the dots you see are the drill collars, and you can see where the pits are in yellow, and you can see spaces between the pits. Probably needs more drilling to see if we can connect those. The hot colors are where the soils are, the gold in the soils are. So you can see where the pits are, and you know that in the grid to the north that you see here, that the gold could not have come from these deposits because it's to the north, and this is the direction of the glacier, from the northwest to the southeast. So you couldn't have what we would call smearing from the glaciers, bringing the gold up to this area. So this is a prime target. We've been talking about drilling for years. Again, we haven't drilled this for several years. It's wide open. And this is that Wilson Hill property that we just acquired, with those soils continuing onto those claims. As I say, these are all intrusive related systems, and there's an intrusion to the north of this. So that's going to be interesting as well. You've got intrusion, you've got gold. You also have the highest arsenic anomaly, not only on our claims, but anywhere in southern New Brunswick sitting on these claims. So, again, more evidence for gold. And to the south east, you have soils continuing until you hit the south zone. And we don't think that it's a coincidence that where this trend hits this trend, you get another deposit, the south zone. It may actually be the same structure as what created the north zone gets subducted when the European plate collided with the North American plate. That's effectively what happened here. So this is the George Murphy zone. This is the intrusion that the 4 deposits that we've been drilling over the last 3+ years is located. And you'll see a bigger picture of this later, a more fulsome picture. Where we made our discovery was right on the kind of the east side of this lake. That's a lake at the bottom. It's a shallow lake. It's at its deepest only about 7 feet. There's algae to this north part of the lake that grows in the summer. The part that we found in the first year of drilling was roughly in this area over here. We found a new vein more recently to the south, and we found a couple of veins to the north. Right near the middle of this area is the 800 and 200 grammars that I talked about. In these new veins to the north, where we've recently been drilled, in fact, just a couple of days ago, we put out a press release where we hit 4.8 grams over 34 meters. That includes a 20 grams over 7 meters. And then 35 kilometers to the east, we hit significant visible gold in another hole. We're waiting for assays to come back. Now, we also drilled under this lake to continue. That's why I say that the strike length has continued for 765 meters to be precise. Now, we continued to have nice intersects under here as well. We hit 23 grams over 7.4 meters in one of the holes. Another one of the holes hit 88 meters of mineralization. There was a low grade 0.6 over 47, but then you picked up grade 2.7 over near 10, 1.3 over 34, 3.6 over 8. So, it's a nice, for an open pit, those are nice open pittable grades. We also hit 4.9 over 30, over 20 meters sitting right here. So we're hitting nice wide zones of mineralization, some of which is quite nice grade for pits. We also did a wildcat hole 400 meters to the east of the main part of the George Murphy. We were surprised that it only came back 9.4 over a half, but this whole intervening ground needs drilling because it hasn't been drilled, and there's a 400-meter gap that now exists to see if we can extend this to more than 1.1 kilometers. The whole trend from this discovery all the way down to the southwest where the 186 grammar is 4 kilometers long. So it's a nice situation to be in. Now, this is the Adrian zone. As I say, the first hole drilled there was 13 grams over 13 meters. We're now getting, the high grade sitting here and the visible gold sitting here. And we're wondering if that's going to connect. That's, I think, 250 meters in here that we could potentially connect. And what we think is happening here is a fold nose. I'm going to turn the page and show that to you. So this is the fold nose over here. You can see some of the other grades that we have over here, 33 over 4.7, a nice intersect, 1.5 over 34. So we're getting some, nice high grade and wide zones. This is a different mag low than the mag low that found the George Murphy zone. In fact, if you look at it, this is a magnetics map. So this is the hot pink are the mag highs, the blues are the mag lows. And the reason why we think this is a fold nose is on the south limb of what we're finding at the Adrian zone it dips to the north, whereas all of the other zones, George Murphy all the way down to Jubilee, dip to the south. So it was unusual to have the Adrian dip in a different direction. The north limb, though, dips to the south, and where the nose part of it looks like it's going in a northwest direction, similar to what's happening at the north zone. So that's what would happen in a fold. So that's why we think that that's what's happening, and you can see we're calling it a possible fold. Another wildcat hole, by the way, that we hit, just one hole in the area, the only hole that we drilled there, we had another recent new discovery, 4.8 over 3.1. Not followed up yet. We'll see what happens. But that's next to this intrusion over here, or between these two. So, as I say, these are all intrusion related. Now, the original soil that led to the discovery of the George Murphy zone, remember I said it was 700 meters long. This is it. It's superimposed on top of the magnetics. And here's that wildcat hole to the east that we hit. So now we've got to come back and see how much we can fill in, because it's wide open. Now, this is the Richard zone. This is the the western end of the George Murphy zone. So this is a 650 meter gap that we're currently filling in. But I'll give you the story of how we found this. So right over here is our discovery hole, the 7.3 over 36. Then what we were doing is we were basically doing 100 meter step outs. Every 100 meters we would do another fence line. And we kept hitting. In the first 100 meters across, we hit 9.8 over 9.5. And in the same hole above it, we hit 4.7 over near 30. And then we did another 100 meter step out, and we hit 5 over 22. And then we went between them and a little bit below, and we hit 10.6 over 47 meters. A monster hit. And above that, 1.2 over 32. And we kept doing these 100 meter step outs. So when we did another one, we hit 6.2 over 38. But you get the idea as we continue to march down to Jubilee. And now the gap between Jubilee and Richard is effectively closed. We do have more drilling down there because there was only a handful of holes between Jubilee, where we filled in the gap. So we have to put more holes in that area. And what we also have to do is we have to come back and put a few holes, not a lot, but a few holes to confirm the continuity in these 100 meter gaps that we've left as we did these 100 meter step outs. Now, people say to me, well, 100 meters, that's too wide. How do you know the continuity is good? And from a logic perspective, I say, look, we're not seeing any faulting. We're seeing very little folding. If you think about it, it's a lot harder to hit gold every 100 meters than it is to hit gold every 10 or 20 meters. So I have every confidence in the world that when we fill in, the only reason really we're coming back to fill in is so that we can have it for the resource. Now, this area between the George Murphy and the Richard, this is where we've been drilling recently to fill in the 650 meter gap. And again, we've been hitting not only really good results, but new veins. These 3 veins to the north are new. So we hit 75 grams over 1.1. We hit 1.3 over 25. We hit 17 over 2. You get the idea. So some nice veins and nice intersects on these new veins to the north, plus a continuation of veins to the south. There might be a small gap in this area where we may not have mineralization, but typically you do get gaps in these vein-hosted gold systems. Quartz vein-hosted gold systems typically have high-grade chutes surrounded by stockworks, which is lower-grade mineralization. And then you may have another high-grade quartz vein chute surrounded by more low-grade, and then you might have nothing for a while. That's what it is in Timmins and Kirkland Lake all over the place. Well, we're finding much better continuity than what we ever would have expected. Now, from roughly here all the way to the where the Jubilee would begin, it's over 900 meters long with perhaps one small, call it 100 meter gap in there. And we'll see what happens when we continue to try to fill in this area. This is the full picture. So this is the intrusion. Stretches, about 3 kilometers or so long. This is the Adrian zone. This is the George Murphy, the Richard, the Jubilee. And then we get down to the new discovery all the way down here, the 186. And that would be 4 kilometers from here to here. Now, if you notice, all of the drilling pretty much is on the south side of this intrusion. Yet the same rocks surround it. So picture a volcano coming up, piercing through the sediments, which the orange and the two blue colors are sediments, and depositing the gold. From a logic perspective, it makes no sense for all of the gold to just be on the south side and nothing at all on the north side. And remember I said, keep in mind where the 33 and the 22 tills are. They're roughly here and here. So there's evidence for gold on the north side of this intrusion, and those tills could not have come from down here. Again, these are to the south, and in fact, the granite is a topographic high. So there's no way that the tills up here could have come from down here. And in fact, what it says, the Geologic Survey of Canada did a study on one of these tills, the one that was 33, and they said that it was fine, pristine gold flakes. Now, you wouldn't have movement in the till and have them remain fine and pristine. Now, you see the Sawyerbrooke Fault. This is our interpretation of where the Sawyerbrooke Fault is. We're not 1,000% positive that we're accurate here, but that's our interpretation. This would be the main conduit for fluid flow. So the main conduit for fluid flow actually has a better chance for gold mineralization along it than somewhere else, because that's where the fluids flowed. So there's a huge amount of exploration still left to be done here. Now, remember I said this is roughly 3 kilometers long, that intrusion. Take a look at this. This is the area that we just picked up, Oak Bay and Lily Hill. Those are some of the claims we picked up that I told you I was going to point out later. This Tower Hill intrusion is the one that's over 10 kilometers long. Tower Hill area is up here. The soil grid we did on it lights up like a Christmas tree. You can see the structures just kind of red dashed line coming down from Tower Hill all the way down to the Oak Bay area. This is a magnetics map because magnetics works here. This is the gabbros. They're magnetic highs because the gabbro is slightly magnetic. The sediments are yellow. So you can see these very pronounced trends. Again, these are all intrusion-related deposits. Down here in Oak Bay and Lily Hill, there's a huge boulder field with hundreds of boulders containing gold. I counted 13 of them north of 10 grams. So, up to 43 grams. So really high grade and lots of golden boulders. If they were, if I counted the ones that were 5 grams or better, it would probably range up to 30 of them. And then you look at the soil grid over here. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's about twice as long as the soil grid that led to the discovery of the George Murphy zone. And the high in any of that, George Murphy or Richard or Adrian, the high was 88. The high over here is 882. So it's 10 times greater. And the soils, there's way more soils. They're much higher grade. So there's way more evidence over here. You also, of course, have the Sawyerbrooke Fault coming through here. There's way more evidence for gold deposition in this area, and we haven't drilled it with one hole, but there is a historic hole that did go through here, and it's sitting right where my cursor is, 5.2 grams over 2.5 meters. It's only 13 meters down. So, who knows what else this whole area hosts. It has never been followed up. There are other drill holes in the area, like this 3.7 over 3, but that was parallel. That was drilled parallel to the zone, which is not what you want to do. You want to drill across the zone. That's the only hole that went across it. None of these drill results have been followed up. So a ton of work. This Tower Hill area has a trench grading 50 grams over 0.8 meters. It's got an 89 gram chip. It's got a 20 gram chip. So tons of evidence along a much bigger trend, much stronger evidence that we're going to drill this year. This whole area in here, that's the intervening ground that I was talking about with the Gabbro Dike sitting to the south. And this has the Gabbros, as does the South Zone. And what we're aiming to prove at this is that this is a gold district that we're finding, a whole gold camp, not just a few deposits, but we're going to find more is our belief. We've been saying that for years, and we keep finding more. So here's the South Zone. Here's the North Zone. Here's the 4 zones that we've been drilling over the last 3 years. So that 186 grammer is sitting right where my cursor is, about a kilometer from Jubilee. You could see a break in the mag high as you get to the mag low. Now, Mike had drawn these dashed lines in years ago. And then we found the 186 grammer sitting right here. There's not another drill hole all along the trend. This is that red squiggly line where you have the 4 kilometers of really high grade soils ranging between 100 and 600 parts per billion. Super high. Remember, it was much lower where we found all of these zones. And it doesn't really look like it goes up here. Instead, it looks like it goes to the south, back toward the south zone. And there's no drilling for kilometers and kilometers all along there. And there are parallel structures that we're looking to drill and see where we can find more all along this trend. So I'm going to skip forward to the Estrades deposit. Estrades is sitting in the northern Abitibi of western Quebec. It's highly prospective, lots of mining operations all around us. In fact, Estrades is a former producer. All the ore from Estrades was trucked 130 kilometers run of mine material. That's how high a grade it was. It was trucked to Matagami. The mill at Nearstar's Langlois can also take it. Now, Nearstar is selling that. It was recently closed. And LaRonde down to the south, Agnico's flagship LaRonde mine. People think of that as a gold mine, but it's actually a VMS, just like Estrades is. So they could potentially take the feed as well. What's interesting about LaRonde, it's the flagship. It now goes down over 3,000 meters. These things really have leg. Kid Creek on the Ontario side of the border, that goes down 3,500 meters. LaRonde's resource didn't start until our resource ends, and I'll show you a picture of that from our resource in a second. So what we have here, this is our land position in blue. We have 3 horizons to explore. We have what's in purple, that's the Casa Berardi break. To our west, you have Hecla's Casa Berardi mine between historic production and their resource. There's over 6 million ounces sitting there. On our east side is the Agnico Maple joint venture. This was Maple Gold, but before the holidays, you saw Agnico and Maple get together on a 50-50 joint venture. Agnico is going to spend $18 million over the next 4 years drilling the ground really up to our border over here. And there's nearly 3 million ounces in resource already over here. Agnico likes this area. They got their start here at Telbel. It's their first gold mine. It was over 1 million ounce producer. And then you've got the Joutel and Poirier VMS, volcanogenic massive sulfides, down here. And what's interesting is, so we've got the Casa Berardi trend, where on our claims only, there's over 90,000 meters having been drilled, most of which by Placer Dome dating back to the 1980s. You've got the Estrades horizon, where we have the former producing mine with our 1 million ounce equivalent resource. And then you've got the Newiska horizon, which is less well known and has less drilling, but a lot of smoke. And that continues on to 3 former producing mines on the same horizon. So, it's 3 really good properties, or 3 really good horizons on our property. And if you think about it, we've got mines either current or former on all 3 of them. Now, this is our long section. This stretches about 1.6 kilometers. You can see the ramp where mining occurred going down 200 meters. The resource was only about here, this part of it, and here. So when we took this, it was only 200,000 gold equivalent. Between an increase in the metal price and our drilling, we were able to bring that up to over 1 million ounce gold equivalent. This area is probably the most important discovery that we made. On the top of it, and this is a cross fault, by the way, another fault, and these faults are associated with VMSs, and these VMSs occur in clusters. So we do believe that there's more to be found on our property. But up at the top of it, there's 11% zinc plus significant silver and gold over 7 meters. At the bottom of it, we have 28% zinc and another horizon, 18% zinc over a combined 6 meters, also with significant precious metals. Over here, we found 21 grams gold and zinc over 4 meters. Excuse me, and gold, 4.3 grams over 2 meters and 1.6 meters, two horizons combining for nearly 4 meters of width. And over here, our first hole, we hit 75 grams. It's a gold only area. We're going to be expanding and looking to expand all of these boxes you see to depth. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them this winter, but we have 3 rigs turning, one on each of the 3 horizons. What we're looking for are the source vents, and what we're targeting principally, with the exception of expansions to this zinc-rich horizon, are the copper-rich zones, because the copper tends to lead you to the source vents. And when you hit the source vents, you can hit the mother lode of these things. And that's kind of what LaRonde is, and what they have at Matagami. Matagami's best mineralization is 1 kilometer to 1,400 meters. LaRonde is from 800 meters, which is below our resource, going down to 3.2 kilometers. So if we can hone in on the source vent, we could find more. There's also targets to the east and west of the mine that we're going to be drilling. Something I want to point out is these 3 key Titan lines. Remember where they are. One is to the east of the cross fault, the other one's at the cross fault, and the other one's to the west of the cross fault. Well, we did a Titan survey, and these are the results. And what it shows is that the conductor goes down 2 kilometers or more. This is where our 28% and 18% zinc is. So what's below it? It begs the question. That's why we're drilling it. Now, what we also did along the cross fault is we extended one of the Titan lines to the south to see what happens when that cross fault, which is associated with mineralization, intersects the rhyolite, which is in yellow. The rhyolite is what hosts the mineralization, the VMS. And what we got was a lookalike. This is right here, and this is the mine. So this is the IP signature, the induced polarization signature, the conductivity of the mine, and then the lookalike sitting right over here. We did drill 1 hole into it last winter, and we did hit VMS. Unfortunately, it was massive pyrite. But that doesn't really disturb us, because oftentimes, as a cap to these things, you get pyrite, and below it is where you get the chalcopyrite and sphalerite. That's exactly what happened at Near Stars Langlois. So here's the Newiska horizon. We call it Newiska East. And we did some Titan lines over there to see what we have. And this is our favorite target. It stretches 5 kilometers. And there was a few drill holes put in prior to this geophysics having been done. And you can see there's a lot of smoke, 130 meters of copper stringers ranging up to 4% copper. There's another one, 1.1% copper over 9.4 meters, 1.2% copper over 7.1. All of these holes contain anomalous metal of one variety or another, or multiple varieties. We started a hole here last winter, and unfortunately we got stopped with an early spring melt. We hit 206 meters of stringers, and then we got into the rhyolite. And we hit one stringer. It was a sphalerite, a zinc stringer. And it was only an inch. But we took a sample over 0.5 meter, and it ran 3.3% zinc, which is really nice on a kind of a wildcat hole. And I figured that what that 1 inch would have represented would have been in the neighborhood of 50%, right? Because it all came from that 1 inch. So this target is just a huge target. Looks like a plumbing system sitting here. You know that there are mines along this horizon to the east, and you know that these VMS deposits occur in clusters. And the reason for that, if you're not familiar with what a VMS is and how it originates, think about an oceanic rift where the plates are spreading apart and you get the hot smokers coming up in the middle of them. Well, those hot smokers are the source vents, and they're depositing the metals on the sea floor. This is what that is. It's a remnant of it. So it wouldn't just be in one spot, but you get it all along the trend. So, this is a gravity survey we did. I'm not going to spend any time. This is what we're planning for our drilling, this year and probably in years to come, because there's too many holes. These dots are all where Mike Sutton has targeted our drilling program. This is the Nuiska horizon to the south. You can see this concentration where we want to drill, and it coincides, the IP coincides with gravity highs, which is what you're looking for. And these are the drill results along the Casa Berardi break that we're following up, also in conjunction with the gravity high anomalies. And that's about it. I'll open it up for questions if there are any.
Okay, yeah. A little bit of an echo there.
The whole time?
No, I think I'm just going to mute you, Larry, while I talk. This will get rid of it. So there are a bunch of questions. We're really tight for time here. I'll try and get a couple in. First question, why did Galway recently postpone its resource update by a few months? Are you unhappy with where the resource currently stands?
Well, we don't know where the resource stands, but we're not at all unhappy. I think it was evident from the presentation that there are, I'll go back to Clarence Stream and I'll go back to this map over here to show, we have these 100-meter step outs. We have to drill between them. We have the 650-meter gap. We keep hitting in that, 650-meter gap, but we want to see if we could fill that in heading up to the George Murphy. We just found the Adrian zone announced last summer. We only have 8 holes into it, all 8 hit, but we want to see, what happens. We just released results where we could have a limb for these new northern veins going back toward and into the Adrian zone. So, there's just a lot of work to do. We know we're not going to be able to close these things off. They'll still be open. It'll just be a snapshot in time. But we owe it to ourselves not only to fill in these gaps, but, for example, if you're drilling from the south to the north, by the time you hit the north vein in one of these things, you're deeper. You want to come back and drill it towards surface, especially if you're looking at pits like we are.
Next question from Jacques Wortman, analyst at Laurentian Bank Securities. Can you expand a bit on the style of mineralization at Clarence Stream? While there have been some numerous high-grade hits, the most recent press releases had some very strong numbers. Is this increasing the prospectivity in the north of the George Murphy zone?
Thanks, Jacques, for the question. Well, as I mentioned during the presentation, it's quartz vein hosted, high-grade chutes surrounded by, quartz stockworks surrounding it. And that would be the lower grade. So, when you have the high grade intersects, this whole 50, for example, that we just announced, it's not quite in the Adrian, but it may link up with it. When you include the stockwork, it's 4.8 grams over 34 meters. But when you just look at the high grade chute within it, it's 20 grams over 7 meters. So what's nice about that is it gives Galway the flexibility when we're looking at developing and operating to look at it either as an open pit or an underground or both. Once you deplete the open pit, you can continue on with the underground because you're getting the kind of the best of both worlds. You're getting the lower grade stockworks and you're getting the wide zones for the open pit material, which you need. And then you're also getting the higher grade, more concentrated vein systems for underground mining.
Okay, the next question. What are the medium, i.e. 6-month and longer term visions? Would you be looking to sell the property or develop it?
We're open to doing both. Some of the things that I didn't touch upon that we're doing is we've just brought on a few environmental consultants, one for Clarence Stream and one for Estrades, knowing the provinces and the laws and rules and regulations for New Brunswick and Quebec, respectively. And we also brought in engineers. I talked about our technical advisory team, but we brought in additional consultants to work with us through the engineering phase. So we'll keep advancing that. But, we do speak with, companies. We have lots of CAs out. We're business people. We'll do whatever makes sense in the interests of shareholders. The one thing that we're reluctant to do is to sell this out too cheaply because, as we're convinced, this is a gold district and people are going to be finding gold here for decades to come.
Yeah, the project certainly seems to be growing all the time with lots of expansion potential. Another question from Jacques Wortman at Laurentian Bank Securities. What is Galway's thinking with respect to how the veins behave at depth. The recent drilling indicates the known mineralization can be accessed by open pit, but how about continuity at depth?
Well, the continuity at depth is really hard for me to describe. What I can tell you is, and I'll tell you why it's hard for me to describe, but what I can tell you is that we're hitting it at depth. That down in the south zone, which we haven't drilled and tried to expand it to depth, the furthest reach was 530 meters or so. That was done by Free West back in the day. Their first 8 years of drilling was only shallow, averaged about 100 meters. And it wasn't until the last 2 years that they started drilling deeper. And for them, that deep drilling created the deep lens under the south zone, which became the largest component of their resource. But it's drilled to relatively wide spacing between 50 and 100 meters. There's a lot more drilling still that needs to be done. And where we are, we've drilled at the Richard is probably the deepest at about 440 meters. And we have a few holes that, do intersect mineralization at depth. Down here in the George Murphy zone, we hit it down 320 meters. We hit 6.5 over 14. But to really understand continuity, you have to drill at tight spacings, and you can't really get tight spacings until you do drill it, tighter, and that's not our objective now. We have too much to do closer to surface to worry about the continuity at depth. One thing that we are perhaps going to do at some point, in fact, we will do at some point, is to plumb the depths, to stick a hole or two down in certain areas to see if it continues. But that's not our primary target today.
It's not a bad problem to have either. Next question from John. He's asking, Dave Rice is known or has some sort of god. He's known as some sort of god in geology. Can you tell us what has been his input since being named onto the advisory board?
Dave Reese.
Yeah, Dave Reese.
Yeah, it's interesting. He wanted to go out to the project last summer. And of course, we got hit with COVID. There was no travel. We were all fine, but, the world got hit with COVID and there was no travel allowed. And he's really, frustrated. Every time we put out a press release, we have, interaction back and forth. I don't know if he'd want me to say this, but he would want Galway to refrain from putting out the resource because he thinks it's probably premature. There's way too many openings for us to continue to find. But we recognize also that by the time the resource does come out, it'll be 4 years since the prior one. So unfortunately, his ability to do the detailed structural work that he's best known for has been limited because he just hasn't been able to get to site, evaluate the core, and help us with our interpretations.
Okay, we can do maybe one more question here from Wayne. What is a reasonable amount of ounces in New Brunswick to be considered for a takeover, in your opinion? And would that be the goal? We've already answered the second part, but what about the first part, Larry?
Well, companies typically look for 200,000-300,000 ounces a year for 10 years. I think that would be a nice benchmark for companies to look for. I think when St. Barbara took out Atlantic, it was probably less than that, and they got taken out for $800 million. I would say 200,000 plus over a 10-year span is a nice benchmark. So 2 million ounces plus of mineable resource. It's kind of an oxymoron, but that's how I look at it. And we're not worried about at this stage doing definition drilling in to get everything up to indicated. For example, we know the gold is there. So our objective is to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and continue to do the engineering around it until or unless we develop it or somebody else does and takes us out.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Larry. A very good presentation, obviously very detailed. You've laid out a very strong case, I think, for lots of interesting areas to explore that are showing good signs that you haven't proven with the drill bit, but a lot of the signs are pointing to the fact that you probably will find something there. So I can see why this would be a popular stock with Laurentian Bank Securities. If anyone wanted to reach out to the company for further information, who would they contact?
me, it would be at LRR Strauss, STRAUSS, at gmail.com. Larry Strauss. And thank you very much to you and the team and everyone at Laurentian and at IR.inc and at Follow the Money for putting this on and the invitation for Galway to present. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So thanks again as well, Larry, for joining us and sharing. So for everyone, the presentation will end momentarily here. We have one more company left to go with Troilus Gold. So we'll be taking you over there momentarily. Again, there will be a survey at the end. We appreciate if you can fill that out. And if you'd like management at Galway to contact you for a follow-up discussion, you can answer the appropriate question, yes. So thanks again, Larry. Until next time, take care, be well, and stay safe.
Thank you very much.